Hello, everyone, and good morning. Here we are with another episode of Let's Talk Real. Today is a very special episode because we're going to be here with a special guest. As you guys can see, Brennan is in the house. So, hi, Bill. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you guys?
Very good, too.
Good.
So, Bill, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your company and all that good stuff?
Sure, happy to do that. So, as they said, my name is Bill Brennan, Goosehead Insurance. A little bit about myself. I, married, 2 kids, and my wife tolerates me a good bit, which is a good thing to have, right? And then
that's important.
it's important in life. But I've owned an insurance agency for about 5 years now. Started, when I was looking at options, Goosehead was the one that offered me the most value. Because it really, when in the terms of insurance and stuff we'll most likely get into, having the power of choice is really important. And Goosehead gives me an example. I have like almost 60 companies now that I'm able to write insurance through, which just obviously provides a lot of value to the clients and able to shop the market without having to do all the work. We can take care of that for them. So
yeah, that's huge.
And that was very important to me. And, when I looked at a lot of different options, I actually looked at multiple options for companies. So excited to do it. And it's been a very good decision for me 5 years later.
Awesome. That's amazing. Yeah, I think the biggest part there is really being able to provide clients with a multiple source of options, because a lot of people think they have to go with one person. If they talk to that person, that's it. You provide that difference there by being able to shop around for them.
Yeah, a lot of times, people think like, oh, I've had this for so many years and I can't change. It's like, no, like you can.
Yeah.
I was one of those people. I had Erie and I thought they were the best. Yeah. After I was in the car accident, they were so good, but that was many, many years ago. And when I had you look at all this stuff, clearly I never got my accident forgiveness back. There was lots of things that you added to it. And soon we'll get a new roof, hopefully.
That's right. Awesome. So I know today's topic is going to be all about homeowners insurance. But we wanted to go ahead and do our myth of the day. And one thing that we were chatting a little bit prior is that a lot of people think that bundling would be the best option and always saves you money, but that's not necessarily the true, right? Tell us a little bit more.
Yeah, I think obviously the TV tells us that bundling and save and all the sort of catchy things that they put out there, and there are some situations where it does make sense and it makes a great package together, but it really isn't always the best case. And I think what I see in my agency with the same carrier, maybe 50% of the time, where people are getting the most savings out of their insurance situation, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of companies are really aggressive on auto rates, but not very aggressive on homeowners rates. And, if I can get you a good rate with an auto company and a good rate with a home company, and it's a couple $100 less than bundling with the same company, you still only have to call one guy, and that's us, right? Yeah. So it's not like you're calling multiple places. We're still your agency, and we're still willing to kind of figure out how to help you out and make sure you're in the best situation.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because a lot of people think, okay, I just want to have everything in one place to make it simple, but they don't realize that working with a broker like yourself, they still can reach out to you and then still have multiple different companies for different options.
Exactly, and that's a key thing. Is like you only have to have one phone number saved, because we're going to put you in contact with that carrier, whether it's one of our partners like Penn National for home and maybe a Plymouth Rock for auto, right? You're just calling us and like, hey, I had an accident with my car. Great, well, let's get you in touch with Plymouth Rock.
Awesome.
So on and so forth.
That's great. Well, that kind of takes care of that myth. So we're going to get right into our topic of the day, which is homeowners insurance. And I know we have set up a few questions for Bill, so we're gonna fire him away.
Listen, ladies. As I said, I'm really impressed. These were a good list of questions. So
there it goes.
have to do some thinking on an early Monday morning. So
you're being tested. Are you ready?
Yeah. Testing your knowledge now.
Wish me luck.
All right, Bill.
Okay.
So, what types of homeowners insurance policies are available, and what do they cover?
Yeah, so I mean, really, so I'm not going to go too nerdy, right? So we can go really down an insurance rabbit hole here pretty quickly. You know, there's different types of forms, insurance forms, but your general ones that we see that we work with are, you have your HO3, which is your standard homeowners insurance policy. But when I say standard, there's so much covered in that type of homeowners insurance policy. And those types of policies are really set up into two different sections, right? One is the property, right? It's the house, it's structures on the property, it's your personal belongings.
Yeah.
It's if you have to live somewhere else because of a claim, that's going to be covered in that section. And then section 2 is really the liability insurance, which just protects you in the case of a lawsuit that arises out of your home. And then there's other types of policies like a condo, right? So Mimi has, so I think you personally have referred some folks over to me that bought a condo, you know, and condos are different types of insurance where you're insuring only the walls in, right? So the outside of the building's covered by a master policy by the condo association, homeowners association, whatever word you want to use. And then we're just kind of insuring any finishes that are in there, the kitchen cabinets, stuff like that, and then the personal belongings of the person, and then the liability as well. Yeah. And liability in those situations are really, really important. We could talk about why later, but that's very important.
Gotcha.
So,
no.
Hopefully that answers without going too nerdy.
That gives an idea, I guess, to people. And the condo is a good example because they're almost double insuring the property in a way, because the condo has the outside, they would need to get it for the inside, so that way they are double covered.
And generally, those can be types of claims that can be a little messier on the really, you know.
Who is responsible for what?
Right. You know, knock on wood. Thankfully, I haven't had too many major claims with a condo because you really get into like a major structure fire or whatever. I don't know. You know, it would be a long day.
Yeah. All right. So getting to our second question, then I know when you're going to give someone a quote for homeowners insurance, you need to determine a certain value for the home. How do homeowners insurance companies go about to determine the value of the home?
This might be probably the best question on that list because I think it confuses people the most, right? You know, they'll call me and say, "Oh, I'm buying this house in Hummelstown and it's $275,000," and then Bill comes in with an insurance replacement cost of $425,000, and they're like, "What?" And you know, insurance company, you know, the $275,000 is like the market value. That's what the market dictates that home is worth. Yeah. And that's how we get to there. But the insurance companies do not care what, you know, Nini lists the house for. They only care if that building burns to the ground. Generally speaking, they need to know how much is it going to cost to rebuild that.
In today's day, which is
which is, you know, COVID. Whew, that threw a lot of people for a loop. And you know what we use is what's called a replacement cost estimator. You know, and I'll give you some very general things here, but this replacement cost estimator, you put in like, hey, is it made of brick or is it a frame build? Is it how many bathrooms are in it? You know, is it a really nice kitchen, like super high end, or is it just your normal, nice builder's grade kitchen, right? You know, and does it have a garage? Does it have a deck? You know, anything that's really attached to it, and then the insurance company spits out a number. You know, when I first started, like it's just crazy. Like I think 5 years ago, if I was like at $125 to $150 a square foot, I was like, oh, this is great. You know,
Yeah.
Now if I'm below 200, I'm questioning all my life's decisions.
Oh my goodness.
Right? So that just shows you
what a difference.
how much it's changed, because you really nowadays, to properly insure a client, $200 a square foot is kind of like that good guide that you need to use. So if it's a 2,000 square foot house, you're usually going to be insuring it for, and this is a general rough number, but 400,000.
Wow.
But yeah, that's usually the most common thing I get. But then I use the example of California, right?
Mm-hmm.
Buy a house in California for $2 million. I can assure you the insurance company's not insuring it for $2 million.
Yeah, because it doesn't really cost that much to build it. Yeah.
That's correct. Because
so they have the opposite effect there.
They'd have the opposite. So what would happen is you'd have a lot of people burn down their house to get that check, you know? So insurance companies don't necessarily like that.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Crazy.
So hopefully that helps. That was a great question, I will say.
Yeah, I feel like that's one that even I had it, because it always comes with a different number. So it's interesting to know what your perspective is coming from the insurance.
When I'm doing like, flood insurance is something that I do a lot of, and I'm just coming up with ideas. I use $200 a square foot as like we'll call it my guide.
Yeah.
And hopefully I'm if I'm wrong, I'm not wrong by a lot.
Gotcha. It's a good measure to use here in Pennsylvania anyway.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next question: what factors affect the cost of homeowners insurance, and how can homeowners keep their premiums as low as possible?
Whew. Loaded question. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that go into effect when you're looking at rating of a homeowner's insurance policy. Obviously, zip code and has a lot to do with that. Your personal insurance history also has a lot to do with that as well. And I think, a lot of times insurance companies assign you an insurance score, right? Everybody has an insurance score. You don't know that you have an insurance. It's not something you can go online and say, oh, what's my insurance score today? But it does have a multitude of factors. Credit is a factor in that.
Really?
And so insurance companies they run a report based on your name and birthday, and any information that is provided, and in that report kind of spits out your insurance score. Then also claims history. So one of the things I try to educate my clients on is, if you file a claim, tell people we want to make sure it's worth our while, right? Because a lot of times a standard homeowner's insurance policy has $1,000 deductible, and if you have $1,200 worth of damage to your house, I'm probably going to tell you to not file that claim, because you're going to get a check for $200, and your rates are going to increase over the next several years.
You see, that's interesting. Yeah.
So it's important to make sure that we're filing a claim for the right reason.
Yeah.
And then other factors are, do you have pets that live in the home? Insurance companies, I always say it's not Bill, right? Bill doesn't say you can't have little doggy that, maybe fits into their prohibited dog breed list. I'm sorry about that, but, I know some people are sensitive to that, but insurance companies make a decision based on certain dog breeds, and that makes an eligibility thing, right? So you might lose.
People are sensitive to that.
Yeah, I mean, listen. They don't do it because they don't like dogs. They do it because they pay out claims that are substantial.
Yeah.
Based on that, and and then swimming pools and trampolines are a big thing where liability lawsuits come out all the time. And then also roof type is a huge deal. So
I know we've been talking about that.
Yeah. That's something Nini, I will ask Nini, hey, do you have this? Because an unknown roof age is a big deal, right? And the type of roof. So flat roofs tend to rate harder than regular roofs. And if it's certain age, it becomes very hard. And it's the way they pay out the claims is what determines that rating, and that's a big deal.
And my husband will keep putting the shingles back up on the roof that blow off. And I'll let you know when it's new.
We need Ted to get up there and do a whole new one.
Well, he's going to do it. It's just a matter of when.
Yeah.
I was curious about the roof part too, because I know in Pennsylvania it's very popular from like 1920s properties to have the slate roofs.
Yeah.
And a lot of people think the slate roofs, majority of them last 100 years, but that's not true because Pennsylvania slate roofs are like 50 to 75 years at most, I believe. So does the insurance also takes like, how do they look at slate roofs in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, so every carrier treats it differently, but 75 years, Nini, is a great. Actually, I mean, it's like you're cheating on the test because like I have a carrier. I use what's called a carrier comparison guide because when you have so many carriers, I'm not going to be able to remember. Penn National says slate roofs can't be more than 50 years old, and Encompass says they can't be more than 80 years old, whatever, So I use this guide, but 75 is a great thing. Slate roofs, actually, you get a lot of leeway with insurance companies.
Really?
Yeah. So it is one where if it is older, they might say, hey, can somebody look at it? Because they don't actually pay out a lot of claims for slate roofs. So they give a lot of leeway to slate roofs. As long as they're properly maintained and in good condition.
Yeah.
I've gotten some approved that have been over 100 years old.
Oh, wow.
By carriers
That's good to hear.
Yeah, by carriers who say no to anything else, right? So, it really just depends.
Yeah, because I have a lot of clients that see slate roofs like, oh no, insurance is going to be crazy. So that's not necessarily true then. That's another myth right there then.
That is a big myth. Yeah, because the only thing that slate roofs, it adds to the replacement cost estimator going back to, slate roof is not as cheap, not that anything's cheap anymore, but, slate definitely is more expensive than a shingle roof. I can guarantee you that much.
Yeah, very true. That's why they're coming up with the synthetic version so people can still have the aesthetics of the plat, but not for, the same cost.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right. So for the next question, so what are the most typical damage losses that are covered by insurances? And are there any exclusions or limitations that the homeowner should be aware of?
Yeah. So loaded question here. This one.
Dang. There's quite a few in here.
You keep saying that, Bill. They're all loaded questions.
This one's a loaded one.
I know, because it's very broad.
Very broad. Yeah. So I mean, really. So you think traditionally, you think your, your fire, your, water losses, but there's lots of different exclusions and different things there. But some of the claims that we see is, if your main water pipe in your house breaks and you come home and there's feet of water in your house, that's gonna be covered. Yeah. Unless you went to Florida for a month and turned off your heat in the middle of January and the pipes froze. Then that's a whole nother conversation that we don't want to have, right? Because that's negligence at that point, right? So, I have, appliances leak all the time. Like that's something that we see a good bit of, where maybe a dishwasher backs up, or something, and that comes into play. Yeah. You have wind and hail damage, so that's common in our area where we do see, a hailstorm will come through and it'll damage the siding or roof, and that's a situation where a roof could be potentially covered by an insurance company, and the same thing with hail and stuff like that. I mean, there's so many. Yeah, I mean, the things that we talk about are the things that we generally see. Common insurance claims are, roof related, right? So, and this is something where we can talk about where, hey, if you have a roof leak, the insurance company actually isn't going to fix the roof unless the roof was damaged by something in that process, right? Let's just say your roof is old and it leaks. Well,
it's
sorry,
old. Maintenance,
you're going to have to fix the roof part on your own, but the insurance companies would repair the damage that was caused by that roof leak. So if it damaged the drywall and all that sort of stuff, and we had to tear out some things, that's something that the insurance company would come in and pay for. But they're not going to actually fix the roof part of it unless it was damaged due to a covered peril. Things that aren't covered, right? Flood is the biggest one. That's the one that a lot of people think, oh, flood insurance is covered. No, it really isn't. And, we have a lot of recent examples, specifically in like Houston, Texas area, who have had some major flooding in areas that never flooded before. And so people who are in, well, every home in Pennsylvania is rated for flood insurance, okay?
Yeah.
Most homes are in what's called a flood zone X, which means that you are not required to have flood insurance, okay? That does not mean your house is not going to flood.
Exactly. And then I think that's a lot of something that people don't realize.
Yeah.
Because they only know, okay, I have to get a flood insurance if I'm in a flood zone, like a floodplain. But that doesn't mean that if you're not in a floodplain, you're not going to flood for sure.
The best way I can describe it to people is the U.S. government determines those flood zones, and we know how awesome they can be.
That is true.
So, I always tell people water doesn't stop because the map says it has to stop there. And that's probably the biggest thing. We look at flood zones. Anytime I do a quote for a client, we look at the flood zone and we look at factors. Like, if you looked, there's some houses along the Susquehanna River that are so high up on the river, on a bank, that it looks like it's right next to a flood zone. But if those houses flooded, we're
screwed.
We're all done, right? Because they didn't get up there. So those maps can be very misleading as well. But, obviously it's something we talk about because it is something we see a lot. And I just don't want to tell somebody that, I don't want somebody to think that that's covered, because that's my job, is to tell them. But I'm also not going to sell them on something that I'm like, well, look, this is something that's a very tolerable risk to take.
I gotcha. Yeah. So. Based on history, on how many times it has flooded and stuff like that. Yeah. And I feel like sometimes people don't realize this too, but they may not be on a floodplain, like a government floodplain design, but they may know that that area floods sometimes, and they want to choose to have a flood insurance. That's also an option, right? So they don't have to just not get it just because they are not in a floodplain.
Yeah, and I mean, the good news is they usually get it for cheaper.
Yeah, that's true, because it's not a risk area.
Yeah, that's a good thing. I mean, we have lots of options for flood insurance, so that's one of the things we can say, hey, this is what it looks like, and kind of go from there and see what people think, right? And our job is to educate. It's their job to kind of make that decision and see what they're most tolerable with.
Okay, and I just got a question here from someone that is watching, so I'm going to bring it up. They mentioned about sinkholes. So we have areas in Pennsylvania, more precisely Palmyra area, as that are prone to have potentially sinkholes. So can you explain a little bit more about the sinkhole insurances and how they work?
Yeah, that's a great question. So actually, and I don't remember what the statistic is, Pennsylvania actually ranks really high up there for sinkholes in the country. Yeah. So I want to say they're in the top 5. I think Florida's number 1.
Wow.
I mean, Florida and insurance, if you ever want to go down a rabbit hole one night, look up Florida Homeowners Insurance and have a glass of wine or
oh my goodness, really? Is that?
Oh
yes.
It's awful.
Good to know. From Florida for retirement.
I thank the dear Lord every day that I'm not an insurance agent in Florida. And I pity those my friends that are. No, so sinkholes are very common. So Palmyra is an area that is extremely common for sinkholes. Generally, and I'll use some general terms. When I say, sinkhole's going to cover if the ground, collapses and the house falls into the ground, which has happened. You would have to have that endorsement on your policy. Usually about $100 a year ish.
They're not very expensive, right?
No, I see it run from like 70. I've seen it as high as like 120, 130. But generally speaking, it's usually in that $90 to $110 range. And that's a year. You're going to be covered up to the full value of the home. There are parts of Pennsylvania. I grew up Kelly grew up north in the coal region, right? there's a website that you can go on and look up if there's underground mines.
Yeah, like Centralia, the burning city.
Yeah, but not only that, I mean, there's so many places where there's mines underneath a home. And mines are known to collapse, and that's a little bit different than sinkhole insurance.
Wow.
That's called mine subsidence insurance, right? MSI.
Oh my goodness! There you go. Talks about different types of insurance. There you go. We just brought up.
Yeah, I mean, you want to go down or this, but it's something that you want to know because, like, if there's I mean, look, I grew up in the middle of coal country. I don't ever remember anybody's house collapsing due to a mine collapsing, but I don't know if I want to be involved in one. Right. You know that. So.
Right, but in Centralia, where it's burning underneath, I mean, I don't think there's any homes left there, but that's one good example.
A great example, and that was. You know, that was a
and I drove Pennsylvania attraction. If anybody here is not from Pennsylvania watching right now, it's a great attraction.
Yeah.
If you want to go visit Centralia.
Well, they recently closed it off. So
did they?
Did they really?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, you had unfortunately you had some a few bad eggs ruin it for everybody. So you had a lot of people, motorcycles, four-wheelers, and they recently shut off all the roads to get in there. And did something. So I mean, you could probably still get there, but it would take some.
Well, I drove through there many years ago to go to college. Every time I would go to college and come home, and every year there'd be less and less houses.
Yeah.
But they would put bricks going up the sides of the house to hold the house up.
Okay. Yeah.
And all the houses had like several things of bricks going up, and I guess that's what held the homes up.
Okay.
That's scary. That's just scary.
Well, there was just so many people
wanting to buy a house in Centralia at this point.
There were so many people that just didn't want to leave.
Yeah, there was one guy. I mean, for a long time there was one guy that was just take me out when I die and then do whatever you want. And he lived there till he died. And I know that for sure.
That's crazy. Okay. Yep. And Kelly has the
next question. So, how do insurance companies handle claims, and what can homeowners expect during the claims process?
Yeah, so so the claims process. So I think one of the biggest things I try to educate my clients on when there is a claim, and it is really hard to do, is people have something that's never happened to them before. You have to have a little bit of patience in that process. Right. I love to tell you that it's going to be solved in a day. It isn't. And, I just had a client who the insurance company finished up the claim. It was like a year. Right.
Oh, wow.
And that was partly because cabinets were delayed and all this sort of stuff. But, it's a process. And, so what happens is you have the initial situation that happens. We determine like, hey, is this going to be something that's going to be a covered claim, right? That's the first thing before we call the insurance company. I actually have a wonderful team that I have my clients call right away because they really kind of help dissect and look and say, hey, yeah, this is something that's definitely going to be covered under this section, blah, 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 this and that. And then we work on, getting them over to the carrier because they'll have to file a claim with the carrier. I think a couple things that people have to realize, like, look, if they're, like, let's say your roof, not going to say blows off, but let's say, tree falls on your house, your job as a homeowner at that point is to not get the tree off your house, but to try to minimize the damage inside the house, right? Yeah. So if it's raining and windy, like, hey, can you put tarps down to kind of prevent more damage to the house? Like, that's your first thing. Your second thing is to kind of reach out and let's see how we can help you, right? I work with a lot of different companies that, like, restoration companies that can come out and get that tree off your house. They can start the process to closing up the house until we get an adjuster out there. The biggest thing is document everything. Photos, videos, really anything, because look, we're going to want to start to clean up the process, your property, really before the insurance company is going to really figure it out. Okay.
Yeah.
most claims and adjusters calling you within 24 hours. Most times we're talking, we're figuring it through, and then it's just a matter of lining up the contractors and lining up the folks that could fix the issue as soon as possible, right? Gotcha. And you got it as an agent. Like, my job is to protect against that stuff. The claims process, I lend that on a lot of my partners to make sure that goes smoothly, because to me, if I start calling the insurance company, they're going to get mad. I tell people that all the time, but if I have the restoration company calling the insurance company, who deal with it all the time, that's really good. My job is to make sure that you're taken care of on the front end.
We do have one question again from someone that's watching. They're asking if they can, doing the insurance claim, they can use their own contractor, or does it have to be an insurance contractor? Oh, no. Yeah, generally speaking, you can use your own contractor. What I caution, with that, just a little, that can go both ways. But yes, I tell people, call who you want and let's get it figured out. But they got to understand that contractor's got to understand that they might not be able to charge their normal rates, or that could come out of your pocket, because the insurance company will say, hey, this is what we would normally pay a contractor, right? Yeah. Let's say it's $50 an hour. I have no idea. But let's say it's $50 an hour, and let's say your guy charges $75 an hour. Well, the insurance company's not going to pay him $75 an hour because you want to work with him, unfortunately. Right? So they've got to be willing to work with the insurance company as well. Or you can do that. Like, I have a friend who, a friend of my brother's, I should say, that they just had a major fire claim. I mean, it's hundreds of thousands of dollars. Oh my. And the first and second floor of their house is gone. And I said to them, now's a good time. If you guys were thinking about changing some things in your house, you're going to get a discount. Like, if you can make this kitchen the way you want to. Now, they're going to pay for what you had. They're not going to pay for what you want. So if you want an upgrade to quartz countertops or whatever that might be, they're going to pay you for what you had, if it was Formica or granite, and then you can just pay the difference. So you actually get a discount. Silver lining? I guess. I don't know.
Well,
that is true.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you have something you're annoyed about, you're going to get a discount that way.
Yeah.
So hopefully that answers your question. So, yes, you can use
that's good, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just gave me a thumbs up.
Patience is huge. I was one of your impatient people. Sorry, Bill, when I was kid. That was car insurance, not...
I wasn't going to roll anybody under the bus named Kelly.
I'm rolling myself under the bus. It's okay, I know. That's me.
And, I always say be happy, not be, but like, I do it all the time where I'm working with, but I also tell people is like, I know how I am as a customer, right? I know that, like, if something's on my mind and somebody's not answering my call, like, it's driving me.
Drive you like,
so I know that, like, when you're asking me, you're calling me, I'm trying. Like, I always tell people, like, I'm trying because I know how you feel. And that's why I always want to make sure that we talk you through that process, because it's not something you do every day. It's something I do all the time.
My only thing with that is when the guy I used to put the new trunk on, when they put the camera back in, the camera is not properly in there, which I can go in and probably adjust it and fix it myself, because I Googled it and I can do it. It's
just take it back to that guy, because
I could, but at the time Chad was like, just take it back. I'm like, I don't want to deal with it anymore.
Yeah.
Like mentally
just get annoyed.
I got my car back, and now I got to take them back, and then I got to wait. I probably have to leave it there for them to figure out how to fix the damn camera, when I could probably just Google it and figure it out myself.
Yeah.
Give it a job for Chad.
I'm going to skip a couple of the questions. I think we kind of covered these already during our talk. I'm going to go to the next one, which would be, how can homeowners actually ensure that they have the right level of liability coverage?
Okay, so I don't know if you guys can see this at home. I am hopping on my soapbox as we speak, okay? Bill will talk till he's blue in the face about liability insurance and how underinsured most people are, and it is just it's not a good situation. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Generally speaking, I would probably say 95 or more percent of the policies that I write in my agency, I'm probably going to say it's more, but I don't want to give a false. I'm going to say we'll just say 95%. My clients have $500,000 in liability on their homeowners insurance, or more. Some people have $1 million if it's available, and then people are like, "Oh, you're overcharging me. It's so expensive." We are talking like $10 a year, guys. Like, skip Starbucks once, we remain friends. You don't get mad at the insurance agent, right? Because if you have a lawsuit, you will be so thankful that you spent that extra money.
Yeah.
I always, at the minimum, recommend we'll go back to the replacement cost.
Yeah.
Like, let's say the replacement cost on the home's $350,000. I always recommend the liability to be higher than that number if it's available. Okay.
Yeah.
You can be sued for a lot of things, and people don't realize if you live in a townhome community, let's say your house, a fire starts in your house, and you burn down your neighbor's house. Guess what? You get sued for that.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
So if their loss is $400,000 and you have $100,000 on your liability policy because Jake told you it was a good idea, Jake's wrong. Okay, like, you're just going to tell you Jake's wrong. Okay, because now you have $300,000. They could come after a lot of things that you own, and you got to protect yourself. So for $10 a year, would you rather be really sleep good at night knowing that this is what you have, or would you rather, let's wing it for $10 a year? No, like, we're not talking a lot of money.
Yeah.
Crazy suits I've seen. I had a client in Philadelphia. A lady tripped on her sidewalk, not because the sidewalk was in bad shape. She just tripped.
Oh.
And it resulted in a $200,000 lawsuit.
Are you serious? That's crazy.
Who'd she sue?
Sued the insurance company.
Oh.
She sued my homeowner.
Yeah.
And in turn turned it into his insurance company.
Wow.
So there are things that happen that people are like, what? And you have no idea how you can protect yourself. You just don't want people coming after things that you work so hard for, right?
Yeah.
A lot of
times. And some people could be doing this intentionally too. I mean, you never know.
Right.
It's so easy to start any process like that.
I'm gonna go with a higher percentage on the lady in Philadelphia. I think this was her career.
Oh, wow.
So
that is crazy.
people know how to. There's people out there that know how to game the system, and I don't recommend it because you are committing insurance fraud at that point. So good luck.
Yeah.
But then there's other ways to protect you. Obviously, there's so many crazy ways. Like, I'm a golfer, right? Let's say I'm out golfing and I hit a drive and Kelly's on the hole next to me and I hit Kelly in the head with a golf ball. I didn't intentionally do that. But
did you not?
Maybe. I mean, if it was Kelly, I was aiming. Right? I was like, oh God, right? Nene, I named 3 fairways over just so I did it. All right.
I will remember that.
But if Kelly has medical injuries from that, that's a lawsuit that my homeowner's insurance policy would pay out, right?
Wow.
Because I'm legally liable, even though I was, doing that, right? Like, let's say you trip somebody walking down the stairs, right? If they're injured, they can sue you, and that can turn into a liability claim. Where homeowners liability doesn't transfer as automobile accidents, okay?
Yeah.
No, we're not really talking that much about automobile, but like, if you are in an accident in a car and there is a liability claim out of that, that is only paid out of your auto insurance policy. Unless you have an umbrella policy, which goes over top like an umbrella would to protect you over the auto and the home underlying policies.
Someone is asking, what is an umbrella insurance?
Yeah, so an umbrella policy is It's when your liability limits are exhausted on your underlying. We'll just do home and auto at this point. Let's just say you have a car and you have a house, and then we have an umbrella policy to protect them. So on your auto liability limits, let's say if you're in a really bad accident and somebody is injured, or worse, right? Generally speaking, to get an umbrella policy, you need to have 250, 500,000 in bodily injury. 250 is per person, and that's 250,000. So let's say, God forbid, somebody's killed. Okay, the insurance company is the Debbie Downer here. Okay, so let's say somebody, God forbid, killed, 250,000. The family sues for $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Unless you have an umbrella policy, we have a gap of insurance of 750,000. Umbrellas, generally speaking, $1 million in coverage, and that's how that would kick in and pay. If you don't have that, and then the lawsuit is won and it's against, then
you find yourself in a pickle.
Now they're going to come after equity in your home. They're going to come after things that assets. They're going to come after stuff that you've already saved for. And not to be the Debbie Downer, but that's kind of a general idea. Some of the crazier umbrella stories I've heard is, guy did a fireworks show at his house on the 4th of July, and one of his buddies lost an arm.
Oh my gosh. His
buddy couldn't work anymore, because his job involved his hands, and $500,000 on the homeowners and $1 million on liability. So the guy was awarded $1.5 million. Right?
Wow. That is the craziest story. Wow.
Things that people don't think about,
exactly.
People over, it's blow off fireworks, and then they blow off an arm, and then they're like suing their buddy. So,
people do it. People do it in my neighborhood, and there's really nowhere to set off fireworks, but they do.
But let's say I set off fireworks and burned my neighbor's house down. Guess what?
I
get sued for that. So
that's crazy. Yeah, liability is a big topic.
Big, yep.
Yeah.
And it's what a lot of people don't
think about, because it's something that it could not happen. So people want to, like you said, wing it, and that's when the crazy stories come about. Yeah.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Kenny, do you want to do the next one?
Yes. So I'm gonna skip to the last one.
Okay.
Because I think we kind of
we kind of covered that one as well.
Yeah, we covered most of what you just talked about. We covered in some of the other questions.
Yep.
So, what are some key things that homeowners should look for when choosing an insurance provider or policy, and how can they compare different options to fit their situation?
So, all right. So in the insurance world, I'm what's called a broker, right? So I'm not for an insurance company. I'm for the consumer. Okay.
Right.
There are certain carriers, Jake, Gronk, the Gecko, right? Mayhem. They only have one policy, only have one type
provider
that they write for. They're called a captive agency. Okay?
They only have one provider.
One provider.
Correct? Okay.
So, insurance is, the best way to describe it is the square peg, round hole type scenario. You might be a square peg, and they're trying to jam you into their round hole. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas I got 10 companies that love square pegs, right? So, by going to them, they might give you something good here, but why not find the best carrier to start, right? And that's that who's the best fit for you. And I think that's one of the things that we always kind of talk about is we want to shop that market for you and kind of see what's out there.
Yeah.
I tell people this all the time. I come from an education portion where every client, I won't email a quote to someone. I don't believe in it because you're not a licensed insurance agent. You don't know what's in that policy, and every policy that is sold has something different in it. Doesn't matter. So we want to make sure that we're explaining what's insured in there.
Yeah.
price is extremely important in this world, right? But insurance, you want to make sure that you get the value for that price. So the nice thing is normally I can get you a better price with more coverage, or get you a lot more coverage for the same price you were getting something.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing is like, hey, if they're just emailing you a quote and they're not explaining to you, it's generally speaking, they're not proud of that quote, right? They're just trying to sell you something. If I try to sell you something, I didn't do my job, because I'm not going to sell you. Like, you're going to know at the end of our conversation if you think this is the right idea.
Yeah.
Right?
And I know you to be very honest and open to people. You're like, look, this makes sense, or no, honestly, this doesn't make sense. You're better off keeping that or getting something new. Or
I tell people I don't make enough money off an insurance policy to lie to them. Like, I just don't, right? You know, it's not worth it in that aspect. You want to make sure that the person's being put into a good spot. You know, especially if you guys are sending somebody over to me, right? That's a reflection of who you guys are, right? You know, you don't need some slimy guy trying to sling
something bad into the person.
You know, do things always go perfect? No. But you know what? I'm at least going to give them a fighting chance to make sure that they have that. But yeah, so I mean, I think it's a long-winded answer of getting there, but I think it's just a matter of finding what's out there that works for them without having to call multiple places.
Yeah. Just call Bill and you set. That's the way to go.
Yeah.
So just give me like 3 huge takeaways of today's, and like maybe advice for people that are out there, you know, about
I think the biggest takeaways for today is just like knowing, I think for the people at home, like, hey, know who your insurance company is.
That's a good one.
You think it's never mind, but you think that it's a no-brainer, but really no. And then obviously know what's in your insurance policies. I think that's a lot of times what people don't like. If they don't know who their company is, they're not going to know what's in their policy.
Yeah.
And then making sure you're having those conversations with, you know, your insurance professional at least every couple of years. Things change all the time. You know, if you haven't looked at an insurance policy before COVID, you're most likely underinsured if you own a home, because
need to talk, Bill.
because your house, a piece of plywood doesn't cost what it used to, and trust me when I tell you, you're most likely. And just because you're underinsured,
which is why we haven't done our project yet.
Yeah, I mean, if you have a major loss and you're underinsured, the insurance company is going to go like, sorry, I feel bad for you. Yeah, we'll write you a check. They're not writing you a check, guys. Like, I'm sorry.
Yeah, right. No,
you know,
that ain't happening.
They're not going to go, oh yeah, you're just a nice guy. Here's an extra $100,000. They are not doing that. And guess what? That means that's on you as the consumer. And, you know, and I think one of the hardest things is people, you know, if you go online and you Google any insurance company, right? The reviews aren't left by somebody I'm really happy they take money out of account every month. They're just so great. The reviews are left by people who are underinsured, right? and had a bad claim experience and things along those lines. You know, that's kind of what I tell people. Know what you're insured for. Understand what's in your insurance policies.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably the biggest takeaway that I can tell anybody is be involved in that, because you could have a substantial claim that could cost you way more than you ever think. You know.
Yeah.
And
that was a big one, because I hear people all the time, I've been with this company for so many years. I like and trust them. I never had a problem. But you also never have filed a claim with them. You may not know what the process is. And also, like you said, you may be underinsured at this point. So that's a huge point.
It's a huge deal. And I think that's what people don't really, it's really hard. I mean, I had somebody come to me not too long ago, and, you know, they've been very successful in their life and has done very well financially and built up quite a, you know, quite an asset, we'll call it.
Yeah.
And they came to me and they threw me over their insurance policies, and I went, oh my God. Like, I couldn't believe what I was looking at.
Wow.
You know, because they're in an accident. Somebody's come after those assets.
Wow.
So,
yeah.
You know, because they were grossly underinsured, and that's just like hey, we need to fix this, and we need to fix it like immediately.
Right now. Yeah.
Like, we don't have a day. So.
Well, that's all. Kelly, do you have any other questions for Bill at this point?
I don't think so. So.
No, this was very, very great. I think we cover way more than probably we're expecting at first. So thank you so much for joining us today, Bill. I know you took some time off your busy day, so thank you so much for joining us here.
I'm so glad we did it, ladies. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you for always trusting me with your clients as well. It means a lot. You guys are the best. And
yeah, we trust you. We love working with you.
We love you, Bill.
Yes.
No, don't make me blush,
Bill.
ladies.
So you guys need any help, call
If
Bill.
you ever hit me with a golf ball, you're done.
I like I said, I would never do it. Yes, I
right.
No, wait, she didn't hear that, did she?
No, so guys, if you want to touch base with Bill for any help with insurance, the homeowners insurance, car insurance, whatever you need, if you have questions too, just call him. His number is going down here with ours as well. So please feel free to reach out. I don't think I have any additional questions so far, so I think we're good. Thanks so much, guys.
This was awesome, ladies. I had a really fun time. Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.
See ya.